Well, I think after, everyone's concerned about it. So I recently was talking to a seller and they're like, well, we don't have to pay a buyer's commission anymore. And I said, no, you've never had to. But if you're not willing to do that, then your property is probably going to get lesser number of showings because a lot of buyers don't have the money to pay their realtor. So you're going to have a smaller target audience that will be able to preview your property and maybe make an offer on it if you're not willing to compensate the buyer's agent.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another Workout Wednesday. I hope you all had a wonderful Easter weekend. We are filming this on Good Friday, but by the time you'll see it, it'll be the Wednesday following Easter. So I hope you all enjoy spending time with your family. But for this week's video, we have a very special guest out of our Atlantic Beach office, Beverly Hecht.
Good morning.
Welcome. I want to hop straight into the questions before we begin today's topic about earning commissions and kind of earning your 3%. I want to hear a little bit more about you. So, we work back and forth together, but for people that are just now hearing about you, people that are outside the company, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I grew up here at the beaches. This has always been my home. And I obtained my real estate license October 2005. And 2 weeks later, I started with Berkshire Hathaway, formerly known as Prudential Network Realty.
Yes.
And this is the only brokerage I've ever been with.
Awesome.
So initially I was part-time in the industry, and then after about 12 years I realized how important it is to be a full-time agent, completely engaged. So I've been doing full-time real estate for the last 8 years, but 20 overall.
For today's topic, I want to talk a little bit about your overcoming commission objections and earning your 3%, because especially now after what happened in August, I think it was, with the changes in NAR, commission conversations probably come up a lot more than they did before, especially with buyer broker compensations now being in the mix, but they still were before. With those changes in the real estate industry, how have you adapted to protect your value as a real estate agent?
Well, I think it's been a paradigm shift for all of us.
Yeah.
It's been difficult for agents, and we do have to explain our value. And from my perspective, I think that Berkshire agents are far and above other agents in the industry. We get training, we have so many resources, we do a lot of collaboration, a lot of brainstorming, and all those things make us more knowledgeable. I also, I take a lot of classes to, gain more knowledge, experience. I participate in a lot of brainstorming sessions, and I build those relationships not only internally with Berkshire, but with other agents. And I think that explaining that value to sellers and buyers, any realtor can put a listing in MLS, but having good negotiation skills, looking out for their best interest, trying to make them the most money and get their property sold. So I don't think a lot of sellers and buyers realize what we do and that we're independent contractors. And, for sellers, doing the marketing, doing the photography, doing social media, open houses if they want it. There's a lot of time, energy spent to represent them to the best of our ability. And I really think it was great what Julianne Grant Johnson said earlier this week in our buyer panel, is that, time is our greatest asset. We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort. We don't just, when we're working with sellers, we don't just, give them a range or work with them to set a listing price. We do a lot of analysis and spend a lot of time to make sure that we represent them very, to the best of our ability, and also, get their property out there in the best manner possible, because we only have one opportunity to make a first impression.
Absolutely. I love that you plugged your panel.
Yes.
If you would like to see the panel, it's on AE. Buyer panel from our past Tuesday, last Tuesday's company-wide sales meeting. So that would be, if you want to watch that, go into AE, watch that as well. Beverly was on it along with Julianne. It's a great panel. What are the most common objections you hear from buyers or sellers whenever you bring up that commission conversation?
Well, I think after, everyone's concerned about it. So I recently was talking to a seller and they're like, well, we don't have to pay a buyer's commission anymore. And I said, no, you've never had to. But if you're not willing to do that, then your property is probably going to get lesser number of showings because a lot of buyers don't have the money to pay their realtor.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a smaller target audience that will be able to preview your property and maybe make an offer on it if you're not willing to compensate the buyer's agent.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit about those services and expertise that you provide. What are some of the main ones that you hit on whenever you are explaining that value? You mentioned open houses or like marketing. What are some of your key ones that you definitely are using to get a point across?
Yep. I think from a seller's perspective.
Sure.
Okay. So from a seller's perspective, marketing their property, speaking to other agents, getting the best representation for them, with photography, negotiation skills. I'm going to work with them when we get an offer, helping them analyze that offer to see if it's something they're willing to accept or do they need to counter it. Or, they may get into a multiple offer situation and what does that mean for them? And also understanding their perspective. Is it time on market? Do they need to get to another city or state in reference to job or employment? Are they trying to get to family? What are their goals? So having those discussions and making sure that, we meet those needs, that's very important, and make sure we do it in a timeline. So sometimes we have to be a little more aggressive maybe in pricing. I continually watch the market and what comes on the market, what gets sold, and I communicate that to them. I have a situation right now where we had established a price point for a new listing that I'm getting, but then I saw a recent sold. So I communicate that to the seller to say, hey, we need to probably make some adjustments upward, which they love to hear.
Yep.
But continually analyzing what's going on in the market, talking to other realtors within our organization as well as outside. I also participate in market distillery. So we get great presentations, great hyper-local information and analysis as well as from a national perspective.
Absolutely. So. You mentioned negotiation skills. How are you balancing being firm on your commission, because you do have to earn some kind of income at the end of the day, and maintaining a positive relationship with your client?
I just explained the value of, I think in the past, a lot of people, sellers don't really understand the value and what they get. It's not like they're just paying for no service. And there are plenty of discount brokers out there. There's plenty of people that will do it for a lesser commission. But what services are they getting in return for that?
What are you willing to sacrifice?
Absolutely. So, you don't really, like they say, if you can't negotiate for yourself, how are you going to negotiate for your buyer and or seller?
I like that a lot. So can you share an example of a time where somebody may have questioned your value and you successfully went on to demonstrate your value? It could be a real life example if you want.
Yes, I think, I think it's occurring more often now because I think buyers and sellers feel like, so if we have a buyer rep signed and it's for 3%, but the seller's willing to only pay 2.5%. Well, I'll always write it into the offer to get that 3%, so the buyer doesn't have to pay that difference. But also explain it to them in the price point they're looking at. It's really a small difference if they have to pay that, if the buyer has to pay that in order to get the property they want. But if it's really what they want and they want to move forward and it's the house for them, then it's really a nominal amount in the overall, scheme of things. And same thing with the seller. I had that recently. I was making an offer on a property, and the seller's agent really didn't commit to what the seller was willing to pay. And so I wrote it in, of course, at 3%. And the seller's agent called me and said, "What a great offer you wrote. Seller's going to accept it. Seller is more than happy to pay your 3%." So it's, making sure that you not only show your buyers and sellers your value, but also the other agent, because, they know that working with a Berkshire agent, they're going to have a seamless transaction.
Yes.
It's going to be easy to negotiate, and everyone's going to work to make the transition come to fruition. So, they were more than happy to pay that 3%.
Absolutely. Yeah, helps to be with the right brokerage.
It really
That
does.
reputation carries through.
It does.
Final question for you. What advice would you give to newer agents who might be struggling with this commission conversation?
Yeah. And it came up again once in our panel. It's having the confidence.
Yeah.
Go in there and show your value, show what you have to offer. Not only, your own value, but having the collaboration and the mentorship and everything that we have within our environment, from brokers, from other agents, from all the training that we have. So it's just being confident and letting them know that you're going to represent them to the best of your ability, and also meet their goals and timing and get the most for their property. If you're representing the seller, and working to really negotiate and analyze the data so that a buyer doesn't pay too much.
Yes.
So you're showing your value and you're being confident about it, and that's going to resonate with the buyers and sellers.
Absolutely. I think Alex Shepard said it best probably in his panel, and as well as in the Workout Wednesday that I did with him and Julianne. He said, you can go into that meeting and be like, I can sell you a house if you want to, or you could come in and say, I know what I'm doing. We're going to sign this buyer agreement, and we're going to get you the house that you want. It's how you present yourself in that meeting, because you said you only get that one chance to make a first impression, and that first impression matters. Hey y'all, just wanted to come on and say thank you to Beverly. The video actually cut off right whenever I finished talking there, so I didn't get any footage of me thanking Beverly for coming on. Just want to give that right to her, because we always want to be thankful to our guests for coming on our Workout Wednesday series. I will put all of her social media handles and her website both down below and on screen, so you guys can go check her out beyond this video. But other than that, we will see you next week. Take care.